Welcome back to the Political Rice Bowl. Today we're going to talk about white privilege.
White privilege is connected to systemic racism. If you don't know, I covered systemic racism in my last video. You can check that out. Link in the description. Originally, I was going to talk about white privilege together with systemic racism in the same video, but I realized that that's going to take way too long. So I decided to make it two separate videos. So white privilege, what the heck even is it? From my understanding, it is that whites benefit the most in society, or that whites benefit more. And when you talk to some liberals who believe in it, they'll say that white privilege doesn't mean that white people's lives hasn't been hard. It just means that your skin color or their skin color has never been a reason for it. And you see that statement on social media, posted up by many famous pages. And I really do have a problem with that statement. It seems to me like they are implying that white people cannot experience racism, or that racism has never affected the quality of life of white people, which honestly is really, really stupid. And many of the people who say that also believe that blacks can't be racist. They will say something like, whites can't be discriminated against, and that's because the US was built by white people and their skin tone can never affect them in a negative way. Or perhaps something on the lines of, white people are in power and they are the majority, therefore they cannot face oppression or discrimination by the minority. And it is honestly shocking that people think like this while calling themselves empowering and anti-racist. Because by that logic, if a white person in China beats up a Chinese dude because of coronavirus, he can't be racist because he's a minority in China. Hell, by that logic, Asians in America can't be racist towards black people, since Asians can only be bigoted but not racist, since Asians are only 5.6% of the population, while blacks are 13. But no, obviously not. That logic is very stupid. And racism is the discrimination or unfair treatment on the basis of race, and nothing to do with power. So, white privilege is a bit complicated in my opinion. I feel like if your definition of white privilege is that white people's problems has never been because of their skin tone, or that their skin tone can never negatively affect whites, then I would kind of think you're stupid. However, if you say that in certain situations and circumstances it would be better to be white or a white person, then I would argue that's true to an extent. For example, if you are white, you're more likely to grow up with your biological dad. That's a privilege, because statistically speaking, whites are more likely to grow up with a biological dad. But if you make this argument that whites in certain circumstances benefit more in society, then you also have to apply it in other areas as well, including black privilege, male privilege, female privilege, all of that. But if you're gonna make this argument, then you need to apply it to other areas as well, such as black privilege. For example, affirmative action. If you are black, you are given points on your SAT by colleges, while an Asian or a white person has their points taken away from them because, white privilege. And because Asians are too smart. So if you argue that, then to an extent I would agree with you. But unfortunately, that's not what most people believe in when they say white privilege. That's not what they mean. They usually mean the first version. So let's talk more about the latter. This ties into systemic racism as well. In the last video, I only talked about black immigrants and how they're doing really well. But we can even take more examples, such as the NBA or music. If America is systemically racist towards blacks, and if whites are so privileged, then how come practically all NBA stars are black? If America is systemically racist, why are all the top rappers pretty much all black? And again, by going by certain leftist logic, if all inequality and inequity is because of racism, then given the fact that there are so many more blacks than whites or Asians in the NBA or music industry, then wouldn't it be the case that whites and Asians are being discriminated against? No, of course not, because that logic is stupid. And the same thing goes for other aspects as well, beyond white privilege, beyond skin color, male privilege, etc. There are, of course, advantages of being a man over a woman, and in many cases, advantages of being a woman over a man. And I would argue that the privileges that men and women have over each other in certain circumstances are far more obvious than the ones that blacks or white have over each other, since the differences between genders and sex are far greater than the differences between black and white. But I'll talk about male privilege in a future video. So again, if you are talking about the first version, the stereotypical version of what white privilege is, that being white is never a problem for you because you're white, then that logic is stupid, and that so again, if your logic so again, if your definition of white privilege is the first version that I talked about, then I would say that you're stupid and that white privilege does not exist. Because obviously, in certain situations, the problems that white people face is because of their skin tone. Like I said, affirmative actions, white people have their SAT points taken away from them because they are white. And Asians, they have their points taken away from them because Asian stereotype is that Asians are too goddamn smart. However, like I said, if you are saying that in certain situations whites benefit more than blacks, then I would agree with you to an extent. But obviously, you need to apply that to other areas as well, and not just white people, but people of other races as well. So this marks the end of this video. If you enjoyed watching, please consider liking the video or maybe even subscribing to my channel, as that would help a lot. Now, remember, you are watching Political Rice Bowl, and I'll see you next time.